Hi, I'm Ellie and welcome back to my Toyota Hiace, which I've self-converted for van life, and I'm currently travelling the Australian East Coast in. And if you have been watching the news, then you may have seen that the New South Wales coast experienced a bit of flooding this past week, so I just wanted to give you an update on exactly how that impacted my journey. I'm Ellie Wilder and you're watching Wilder in Motion.
The Hastings River remains a torrent as exhausted rescue crews work to evacuate people trapped by floodwaters.
So if you saw my previous van life vlog, then you would have seen that it was raining quite significantly for the past few days of that. And when I saw that there was more rain to come, I decided to speed up my trip to get to Port Macquarie so that I could shelter at a relative's house. Now, Port Macquarie is one of the areas that just a little over a year ago was severely impacted by the bushfires. So it really is one extreme to the next. So I was very grateful to be able to shelter at their house because it meant that I was able to park the van on a raised up concrete slab so that it wasn't swimming in water, and that I was able to sleep inside their house as well and just keep nice and dry. One of the biggest differences I noticed with having just 4 days of solid rainfall in the van was it wasn't really the leaks that were the problem, it was just the general stagnant damp air. It just started to smell damp and feel damp, and everything was covered in condensation. I kept the rain dome open the entire time and it did its job keeping the rain out. I just wanted to get some amount of airflow, but with no break in the rain there was never really an opportunity for things to actually dry. In addition to that, I did have a couple of leaks, including this door seal back here, which you saw in my vlog. I thought this was because the door wasn't quite closed properly, but I think it's just because of the sheer amount of rainfall and that it was coming in at an angle as well. It was just dripping all along this seal here down onto the bench top and also onto the wooden panel that's on the lower section of the door. And when there was a break in the rain and I was able to come out and check on this, I discovered that the top of that wooden panel had started to mold, and at that point I decided to just rip it out because it was a bit of a lost cause and the entire thing was absolutely saturated and it just started to disintegrate like cardboard. So I drew up a template of it in case I want to replace it, but for the most part I've decided to just leave that panel off because it was mainly cosmetic. On the other hand, I put some vinegar on the bench top just to try and clean it off, but for the most part it really just needs to get super duper dry. And then to stop things from happening again, I went to Bunnings and bought a door seal, and I stuck this along the upmost part of the sliding door. So now it's essentially kind of double sealed, and that seems to have kept any rain since out, so hopefully that continues to do its job. The other leaks that I had were this rear panel here, just where the screws to join the rear door onto the main van were, and I've just siliconed them back up. Very luckily though, the cushions I had just flipped over so that the reverse side of fabric, which is a waterproof outdoor fabric, was facing up. So luckily the little drips of water just pooled on here and they didn't soak into the cushions, so that saved me a lot of trouble. Where I was able to shelter, even though we did get so much rain for 4 days straight, we were sheltered from the actual pooling of the floodwaters and there was really good drainage, so we didn't experience any actual flooding. However, the surrounding area did, and so this meant that a lot of the roads were flooded, and so I was pretty much just stuck there for almost a week. And even though I enjoyed spending time with my family, I did want to get back on the roads so that I could continue my trip, which I was able to do on Wednesday when it had finally cleared and the sun had come back out. The very first thing I did though was just open up all the doors in the van just to try and get some airflow through, and this is one of the great things about having the sliding door on the right hand side as well, because I can actually get airflow right through the back of the wardrobe to make sure my clothes aren't going moldy or just getting too damp. And once things had had a bit of an air out, I headed back onto the road just to be met by a flooded road. So I had to take a little bit of a detour, which resulted in me staying overnight in the town of Kempsey. And when I tried to leave Kempsey the next day, I ran into about 5 different flooded intersections, which is one of the annoying things. For whatever reason, the council of the SES doesn't communicate when the roads are closed very well, especially main roads like intersections. It's all a bit strange, and it means that Google Maps and TomToms and even their own websites like livetraffic.com.au don't have this information about what it's flooded, so you literally don't know until you are standing there looking at the road closed sign. And the result of this is that everyone has to do a U-turn and the traffic gets really backed up going the other way. So it took me quite a long time to get out of Kempsey, but I eventually did make it out of Kempsey and was able to continue on my trip up the coast. The other impacts aside from the flooded road means that I can't go swimming at the beach at the moment because all of the stormwater and floodwater runoff has contaminated the ocean. It's mostly just lots and lots of dirt, which makes it look very disgusting and not at all like somewhere you want to swim, but there are also completely random things washing up that have been swept up in the floodwaters. Went for a walk along the beach the other day and there was an entire bale of hay and what looked like many whole trees on the sand. As I've been driving along on Pacific Highway, I've also gone past many farms which have been flooded and they've only got about this much of their fence sticking above water. Fortunately, I haven't seen any properties where the house itself is actually flooded, just seems to be the fields. Even though I was fortunate to avoid the brunt of the flooding, I am from sheltered Sydney, so we do get bushfires and floods and droughts, but there are so many resources and plans in place to ensure that the lives of actual Sydney-siders are not too severely impacted. So I've never witnessed anything like this on this scale in Sydney before, and I think it's just made it all the more authentic of a travel experience, because part of the whole point of traveling is to learn about life for other people in Australia. Natural disaster is just a reality for so many of those living in regional Australia, and I've been fortunate to be able to experience and get a concept of what it's like living outside of Sydney, so much more than just the weather variations, but also the culture and the people and the resources and facilities that people have access to when they're not living in a metropolitan area. I am now back on my way, continuing my trip, and I will be posting van life videos every single Saturday. I will be continuing to do vlogs and also van tip videos. This was just a quick little update to let you know how it's going here, but if you want to be a part of the journey, then be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.